Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Lily's risky cane game. According to spoilers for the week of August 18th to 22nd on the Young and the Restless, Lily Winters will engage in a risky game with Kane Ashby, and Sharon Newman and Nick Newman will encounter a romantic roadblock. First of all, Lily's choice to play with Kane's feelings can backfire. Perhaps the illusory hope Lily will give Kane won't be so ill after all, as it appears that she will be manipulating her own feelings in the process. Lily has been trying to convince herself that her relationship with her ex is permanent, but she can't help but feel a connection to Kane. Lily is drawn to Kane and their lengthy relationship despite everything that transpired in Nice. Despite Lily's best efforts to maintain her composure, it will be simple for her to revert to a familiar routine with Kane. This will be a risky game overall because Lily will still try to influence Kane over the specifics of his plan. Things could blow up in multiple ways if Kane finds out. In relation to blow-ups, Chelsea Lawson and Adam Newman will need to resolve a disagreement about Billy Abbott. Adam will grow increasingly irritated with Chelsea's attempts to justify and protect Billy. Kane might question Billy's loyalty in the interim and subject him to further interrogation. If Kane becomes overly suspicious, Billy's scheme to work as an insider for Jack Abbott may come to a halt, particularly because Phyllis Summers is whispering in Kane's ear. Jack, for his part, will hope Billy can make this work. Diane Jenkins Abbott is planning a lavish honeymoon makeover, so Jack is also in for a surprise. According to Y&R spoilers, Nick and Sharon will then experience a relationship setback. Nick's obsession with assisting the Newmans in their fight against Kane would divert his attention from Sharon and demonstrate to her his dark side. Claire Newman will have to make a choice as Nate Hastings returns from Chicago. Will Claire continue to tell Nate the truth about all of the shady tactics used by Audra Charles against Kyle Abbott? Since Audra has sworn war on Claire, if Claire destroys her relationship with Nate, she might take action to stop her competitor or at the very least strike back right away. Ultimately, Sally Spectra will accept her role as Abbott Communications boss, despite the challenges she will face. As Billy concentrates on his quest to become Chancellor, he will need to adjust to giving Sally greater authority. The week of August 18th to 22nd on the Young and the Restless will see tensions rise, schemes intertwine, and hearts teeter dangerously close to breaking, especially as Lily Winters embarks on what could be the most treacherous emotional gamble of her life. Lily's decision to engage in a risky game with Kane Ashby is far from casual. It's calculated, complex, and laced with both history and temptation. She's been telling herself for weeks that her relationship with her current partner is solid, permanent, even a safe harbor after years of emotional turbulence. Yet, every time Kane's name comes up, every time she catches sight of his face or hears his voice, the armor she's built around her heart thins just a little more. The ghosts of their shared past, both beautiful and bruised, are never far from her mind. Memories of their time in Nice, bittersweet and complicated, still cling to her like a fragrance that refuses to fade. Lily is smart enough to recognize the danger in revisiting that bond, but she's also self-aware enough to know that her heart has never been completely free from Kane's hold. It's not just nostalgia pulling her in. There's something magnetic about the way Kane looks at her, like he sees all the versions of her, the strong professional, the devoted mother, the vulnerable woman underneath, and still wants her. That look makes it frighteningly easy for her to slide back into old rhythms, the private jokes, the lingering glances, the little touches that feel innocent but burn with old passion. And in the middle of this pull, Lily isn't just reconnecting, she's playing a dangerous double game. She's trying to steer Kane's decisions about his next move, subtly guiding him toward choices that will benefit her own agenda. Her intent is strategic: control the variables, anticipate his actions, but the risk is immense. Kane's not a fool. If he suspects manipulation, the fallout could be explosive. This isn't just about bruised egos. Kane's plans have ripple effects across Genoa City's tangled web of business, family, and revenge. One wrong move from Lily could detonate a chain reaction that drags in more people than either of them expect. Speaking of explosions, another simmering conflict is on the verge of boiling over: Chelsea Lawson and Adam Newman's growing tension over Billy Abbott. Adam's patience is wearing thin with Chelsea's insistence on defending Billy, painting him as misunderstood rather than the schemer Adam believes him to be. Adam, ever suspicious and possessive, views Billy not only as a rival but as a destabilizing force, someone who could derail Adam's broader plans with his unpredictability. Chelsea's refusal to condemn Billy feels, to Adam, like a betrayal of loyalty, and their disagreement is inching toward a confrontation neither of them can walk back from easily. Meanwhile, Kane has his own suspicions about Billy. It's not just the standard Abbott-Newman Chancellor distrust. Kane senses that Billy's motives aren't purely in Chancellor's best interest. He's begun subtly interrogating Billy, poking at his explanations, watching for slips that could reveal a deeper agenda. And Kane is right to be wary. Billy is, in fact, working as an insider for Jack Abbott, feeding him intel from within. But that plan has its own set of vulnerabilities, chief among them Phyllis Summers. Never one to resist stirring the pot, Phyllis has taken a particular interest in whispering doubts into Kane's ear, playing on his instincts to question Billy's loyalty. The more Kane listens, the closer he gets to blowing Billy's cover entirely, which would send shockwaves through Jack's strategy and possibly cost Billy more than just his position. It could cost him any chance at redemption in his brother's eyes. Jack, for his part, is juggling enough stress without this additional threat. He's banking on Billy's undercover maneuver to yield results that can protect the family's interests. On the personal side, Jack is blindsided when Diane Jenkins Abbott unveils an elaborate plan for a honeymoon makeover, an ambitious, over-the-top project that could be either a romantic gesture or a distraction from deeper issues. Diane's flair for grand gestures is well known, but this one has all the makings of a headline-worthy Abbott spectacle, something that could draw attention at a time when the family might prefer to operate under the radar. While all this unfolds, Nick Newman and Sharon Newman hit a painful snag in their relationship. Sharon has been noticing subtle shifts in Nick's focus, and during this week, they crystallize into a full-blown roadblock. Nick's obsession with defending the Newman family and taking down Kane consumes his time, energy, and attention. What stings most for Sharon isn't just the neglect, it's the darkness she sees in Nick when he talks about the fight. It's strategic, relentless, and, in her view, a little ruthless. That intensity, once something she admired, now feels unsettling, a reminder of the side of Nick that can prioritize family battles over personal relationships. For Sharon, this isn't just a temporary bump, it's a red flag she can't ignore. Elsewhere, Claire Newman finds herself at a crossroads when Nate Hastings returns from a trip to Chicago. Nate's absence has given her space to think, and she's wrestling with whether to be completely honest about what she knows. The underhanded, manipulative tactics Audra Charles has been using to undermine Kyle Abbott. The truth could destroy Nate's trust in Audra, but revealing it could also backfire on Claire if Nate interprets it as meddling or self-interest. To complicate matters, Audra has already marked Claire as an enemy, and if Claire makes a move that sabotages Audra's standing with Nate, retaliation will be swift and calculated. Audra doesn't just settle scores, she levels them, often with interest. Meanwhile, Sally Spectra steps into her role as Abbott Communications boss with a mix of determination and trepidation. She's aware that the title comes with both prestige and a target on her back. The Abbott family dynamic is famously volatile, and any outsider, even one as resourceful as Sally, will have to prove their worth quickly or be pushed out. As Billy becomes more engrossed in his Chancellor agenda, Sally is granted more autonomy, which is both an opportunity and a test. The shift in authority means she'll have to navigate power plays from inside and outside the company while keeping her own ambitions in check. By week's end, all these threads are tangled tighter than ever. Lily's dangerous emotional manipulation of Kane is not just a private risk, it's a move that could disrupt multiple alliances if it comes to light. Kane's growing suspicion of Billy threatens to unravel Jack's carefully laid plans. Nick and Sharon's romance teeters on the edge as loyalty to family clashes with loyalty to love. Claire weighs truth against survival in her escalating Cold War with Audra. Chelsea and Adam's relationship strains under the pressure of conflicting loyalties. And in the middle of it all, Sally takes her first real steps in a role that could redefine her place in Genoa City's hierarchy. One wrong move from any player could set off a chain reaction. And in a town where secrets are currency, no one can afford to spend carelessly. Lily Winters wasn't new to high-stakes games, but this one felt different, more intimate, more volatile. It wasn't just about corporate maneuvers or social positioning. This was about history, her history with Kane Ashby. That made it far more dangerous, because every move she made had the potential to tug on threads she'd spent years trying to neatly tie off. Standing in her apartment one evening, Lily caught herself staring at a framed photo from years ago, her and Kane in Nice. She'd almost forgotten the warmth of that trip, the sun-washed streets, the way Kane's hand fit so naturally into hers. The memory was bittersweet. They'd been happy, but they'd also been naive, thinking love was enough to weather anything. Nice had ended in a whirlwind of revelations and heartbreak. And yet, the moment she closed her eyes, she could still hear the sound of the waves as they walked along the Promenade des Anglais, could still remember the scent of salt air and Kane's cologne mixing together in the evening breeze. That memory was the weapon and the weakness in her current plan. Part of her strategy hinged on keeping Kane emotionally tethered to her just enough to ensure he stayed within her influence, but not so much that she lost her own footing. The problem was, every time she looked at him, every time his voice softened and he said her name like it was something precious, the line between control and surrender blurred. The danger wasn't just that Kane might discover she was subtly guiding his decisions. The greater danger was that she might forget she was playing a game at all. Kane, for his part, was no passive participant. He could feel the undercurrents in their conversations, the careful pauses, the way Lily deflected certain topics, the moments when her eyes seemed to weigh him before she spoke. He didn't call her out on it, not yet, but the seed of suspicion was already taking root. And Kane was a man who, once suspicious, rarely let a thing go. His mind kept circling back to Billy Abbott. The more Kane watched Billy operate, the more convinced he became that there was more to his presence at Chancellor than met the eye. Billy's sudden willingness to collaborate seemed too convenient, too perfectly timed, especially given the history between them. Kane started asking questions, small ones at first, disguised as casual curiosity, but each answer Billy gave only deepened his doubts. Billy was feeling the heat. He'd promised Jack Abbott he could handle the insider role without tipping his hand, but he hadn't accounted for Kane's ability to read people. Adding to the pressure was Phyllis Summers, whose motives for whispering doubts into Kane's ear weren't purely about exposing Billy's scheme. Phyllis had her own score to settle with Billy, one rooted in years of betrayal, mistrust, and professional clashes. For her, undermining Billy was as much about personal satisfaction as it was about influencing Kane's strategy. Every time she dropped a suggestion into Kane's mind about Billy's lack of loyalty, his habit of self-sabotage, she was planting a mine in Billy's path. What Kane didn't realize was how quickly those whispered doubts were eroding the fragile alliance Jack had built. Jack was already stretched thin, trying to keep Abbott family business steady while managing Diane Jenkins, Abbott's latest grand idea. The honeymoon makeover Diane was planning wasn't just elaborate, it was over the top even by Abbott standards. She'd arranged for a series of luxurious renovations and an extended trip abroad, convinced it would be the perfect way to cement her bond with Jack after a turbulent few months. Jack appreciated the sentiment, but the timing couldn't be worse. His mind was on Billy's operation, not champagne tastings in Tuscany. While the Abbotts juggled romance and espionage, Nick Newman's focus on dismantling Kane's position was having unintended consequences. Sharon Newman had tried to be patient, understanding that the Newman family operated in a near-constant state of corporate warfare. But patience had limits, and Sharon had reached hers. Every dinner conversation seemed to turn into a strategy session about how to undercut Kane, how to position the Newmans for advantage, how to outmaneuver perceived threats. Sharon had begun to miss the days when Nick's attention was on their shared life, on her. The final straw came one evening when Sharon suggested they spend a quiet weekend away, just the two of them, and Nick replied without looking up from his laptop, "I can't. Kane's making a move, and I need to be here." In that moment, Sharon saw the dark edge in Nick's obsession, the same edge that had once driven him to burn bridges in the name of family loyalty. Across town, Claire Newman was facing her own test of loyalty. Nate Hastings' return from Chicago brought their simmering tension into sharp relief. Claire had been holding on to information about Audra Charles' underhanded tactics against Kyle Abbott, debating whether to share it. Her instincts told her that telling Nate the truth was the right thing to do, but her survival instincts whispered that it might be suicide. Audra had already made it clear she considered Claire a threat, and if Claire moved against her, the retaliation would be swift and brutal. Audra didn't just plot revenge, she executed it with precision, making sure her targets felt every step of their downfall. Audra, meanwhile, was playing her own game, quietly building alliances and setting traps. She was skilled at turning people against each other without getting her own hands dirty, and she had no intention of letting Claire disrupt her plans with Nate. If anything, she saw Claire's hesitation as weakness, a weakness she could exploit when the time was right. Sally Spectra, stepping into her new role as head of Abbott Communications, was discovering just how treacherous the position could be. The authority was intoxicating, but the scrutiny was relentless. Every decision she made was dissected, not just by her team but by the Abbott family themselves. With Billy increasingly absorbed in his chancellor ambitions, Sally was left to navigate the company's internal politics on her own. It was a trial by fire, and while Sally thrived under pressure, even she knew that one misstep could be used as justification to push her out. Back in Lily's orbit, the tension with Kane reached a tipping point during an unplanned encounter at Crimson Lights. They'd both shown up at the coffeehouse for separate reasons, but when their eyes met, the pull was immediate. They fell into easy conversation, reminiscing about old times, laughing in that unguarded way that happens when two people share too much history to keep their walls fully intact. But beneath the warmth, there was a current of something sharper. Kane leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "You've been different lately, Lil. More invested. What's going on?" The question caught her off guard, and for a split second, she considered telling him the truth. But the game demanded control, and control meant keeping her cards close. She smiled, deflecting. "Just remembering who we were," she said lightly, before steering the conversation back to safer ground. Kane didn't push, but the look in his eyes told her he wasn't convinced. That was the moment Lily realized just how thin the ice beneath her had become. If Kane decided to dig, he wouldn't stop until he had answers, and in Genoa City, secrets rarely stayed buried for long. The tension between Lily and Kane didn't dissipate after their coffeehouse encounter. It lingered, simmering like a low flame that refused to die out. Later that week, Kane sent her a message. "Dinner? Just the two of us. For old time's sake." It was the kind of invitation Lily knew she should ignore, but her fingers hovered over the screen only a moment before she typed back, "Okay." One night. She told herself it was harmless, a chance to gather more insight into his state of mind. But she also knew that was a lie. They met at a quiet bistro tucked away on the edge of town, one they'd once frequented during their early days together. The moment Lily stepped inside, the memories washed over her, the dim lighting, the gentle hum of conversation, the scent of fresh basil and warm bread. Kane was already there, standing to greet her, his smile warm but edged with something unreadable. The conversation started lightly, touching on work, the kids, mutual friends. But as the wine flowed, the guardrails loosened. Kane leaned forward, elbows on the table, his gaze locked on hers. "You ever think about it, Lil? About what we had, and how we lost it?" Lily's throat tightened. She forced a soft laugh, trying to keep the mood light. "We've both moved on. Have we?" Kane's voice was low, almost a challenge. The air between them grew heavier. For a fleeting moment, Lily thought about leaning in, about closing the space between them and letting old instincts take over. Instead, she reached for her glass, using the motion as a barrier. "I'm not here for that," she said finally, her tone careful. Kane's smirk was small but knowing. "Maybe not tonight." The dinner ended without crossing any physical lines, but emotionally, the ground between them had shifted. Lily left with the uneasy feeling that she'd stepped closer to a boundary she'd sworn she wouldn't cross. Meanwhile, Phyllis Summers was orchestrating her own chaos. She'd been waiting for the right moment to spark friction between Kane and Billy, and that moment arrived when she overheard Billy bragging, loudly and carelessly, about securing insider leverage for Jack. It was enough ammunition for Phyllis to stage a scene. She accidentally arranged for Kane to overhear a snippet of Billy's conversation, carefully cutting it so that it sounded like Billy was positioning himself to undermine Kane's standing at Chancellor.